Hello and welcome to the Alpha Build Podcast. I'm Gorloc The Mad.
I'm the Kadamus.
Golagres.
And we are here today to bring you the highest caliber of video game analysis and entertainment and other such related items.
And others. It's the worst intro ever. Okay, it's a great start. Great start.
Well,
2 left feet.
So gaming news.
And no transition either. Okay.
We don't need transitions. We're above that. That's what I'm rolling with.
Okay.
So apparently, Levine has had it with supporting other people and their families. And is just leaving Irrational.
He's a jerk.
Games.
Said, screw all you guys who helped me create an award-winning experience. Screw you. Fired 90% of the staff.
Yeah. I was a little surprised, but apparently Kadamus here was expecting something because he's like a prophet.
Wait, okay. This is the second time this has happened. We talked not 2 days ago about how he should just drop Bioshock and start something new. He needs to do something different. Because Bioshock carries its own connotations that you have to design it a certain way. It has to, play a certain way.
It's got a lot of luggage, like a single mom of kids.
I get. God damn it. Okay. And what was the thing we were talking about the other day? Oh yeah, we wanted to play a game together, but we're like, oh, we'll wait till it's on sale. And then Gabe Newell heard it and put it on sale the next day.
Oh well. I wish he hadn't listened in on.
Yeah, I know, because we completely failed it.
Yeah, so that was Fallen Enchantress.
Fallen Enchantress Legendary Heroes, to be specific. Thought we could play it multiplayer. Turns out, doesn't have multiplayer involved at all.
It's just like a Civ.
Yeah, no, seriously. Because we're like, oh, it's Civ Fantasy Edition. We can play that as a group. Nope, single player only. And then when you play it, you kind of understand why. It's not made for more people.
Is there another version of the same game with similar title that is?
Well, there's Fallen Enchantress, and then there's Fallen Enchantress Legendary Heroes.
I don't think either is multiplayer.
I've seen someone
neither
else
is
playing
multiplayer.
one of them and thought one of them was multiplayer.
We might have seen it when we were trying to play it multiplayer.
I think we just wanted to play it multiplayer, and then we bought it, and then realized our mistake. But anyway.
We let our hopes get the best of us.
You forgot to look at that little section where it's like multiplayer,
single player only,
controller only. Wait.
But no, so we talked about the whole Levine thing, and maybe it's for the best. Maybe it'll lead to him fading away into obscurity. I doubt it.
I doubt it. But I think it's good in terms of, as a gaming consumer, it's better. Because I think with a smaller studio, he can make the game he wants with no baggage. And he doesn't have to worry about having a huge gaming budget that can backfire and completely ruin him. And it's better, but 90% of the staff got laid off. So that sucks.
But they weren't Ken Levine, so
they weren't Ken Levine, but
they were just nameless drones.
Ken Levine doesn't know how to code, so what game would have happened without him?
I'd like to see Ken Levine just trying to code now I'm making an assumption. I don't actually know if he doesn't code or not. I'm just assuming.
I don't. He always talks about writing all the time, so I'm guessing it's an assumption that I think he doesn't code. But I'm pretty sure he's only been creative director.
Ken Levine's going to listen to this.
I know.
He's going to write a program. He's going to hack a Gmail.
He's going to be like, "Screw you guys! I wrote a Hello app years ago, and it still works."
Well, no, because when he started, he wanted to be a scriptwriter for Hollywood. That's what he wanted to do when he started, and he couldn't get into it. So then he got a job at
Well, that's because you.
Yeah, what's the studio that does Thief? Do you remember? Was it IO Studio? Ion Storm. It was Ion Storm. And that's who hired him, and he just that's how he got into it. I don't think he even wanted to do games originally. He wanted to do movies.
So we were like his backup industry.
Say, I'm going to look that up to make sure that I'm getting that right. But anyway, you can keep going on. I'm kind of a big fan of this decision because I think Bioshock Infinite, while it was a very beautiful game, I couldn't help but feel that they were trying to carry too much of that Bioshock feel forward into a game that it kind of stopped to make a lot of sense. I'm not saying the game was bad, by the way. I'm just kind of saying that some of the things started to clash, and you could start to see the hints that things were being forced when maybe they shouldn't have been. Yeah, and I think a good example is if you look in Infinite, is the whole part with Elizabeth's mother. I felt like that was the Bioshock hearkening part of it. Because it's the game really wasn't a horror experience like Bioshock 1 was until the mother got introduced.
Yeah.
And it felt like she was in it just because they needed a tie-in.
Yeah. And if the game would have been like that more often, then I think I would have been a lot happier with the experience, to be honest.
Yeah, it would have been consistent at least.
Because I enjoy stabbing people that are having a nice Sunday afternoon sometimes.
on a floating utopia.
But
The thing is, too, you have to realize, like from the people's point of view in that game, there's this guy who's like led them to prosperity. He's foretold of some evil guy coming. You show up and are doing everything that he said. Why would they not try to kill you? And then you start killing all of them, and then like.
Well,
Yeah,
but
Andy,
but
you start
racism.
riots.
but racism.
I'm just saying, in the eyes of the citizens, it's like this guy's telling the future. What are you doing?
Well, technically,
Other
that
than
is
putting
true.
that sky hook in that guy's eye.
Yeah, like right away in the beginning.
That's like conflict resolution 101. He's like, I don't know, I'm being caught. What do I do? Ow!
Yeah, but in his defense, that actually makes sense within the plot line of that story. That is how Booker solves problems. He immediately goes to violence.
No, it's just a funny kind of thing when you start looking at it from the citizen's perspective.
Yeah.
It's like actually this guy is probably a bad guy throughout the whole game. He's destroying everything you know and love. Like there's people that are trying to get on that airship at some point in the game, and you show up, I'd probably be pooping my pants. I'm like, it's that guy! He blew up like everything.
Yeah, and he just magically takes the prophet daughter and ends the whole society and kills everybody.
It's like you crash into the ocean, whatever. I don't know. And then they tell those horror stories to their kids for years about how this mysterious stranger stabbed their grandpa in the eye and then flew off.
Never heard from again.
And Elizabeth, she could have thrown him a health pack, but she didn't.
But yeah, I think I agree with you, though.
She actually picked the health pack off of their grandpa and gave it to Booker.
That health pack was made from her grandfather.
That was Elizabeth Lester advertised abilities.
But I think I agree with you. I honestly would have liked Infinite better had it not been Bioshock and he wouldn't have been chained to it at all. I think it would have been better because like there's a lot of things that didn't work right. Like the resurrection in it felt really like it kept the game flowing, but it made it almost feel easy, like you weren't unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like the original game where you actually felt like you were, what's the word, fragile. Like you could die at any point. In Infinite, you're just like you blew through it without any.
It's true, but the argument's always going to be that there's a harder difficulty setting to put it on.
That's true, there is. Did you play the hard difficulty setting, by the way?
No, I never touched it.
Okay, it's better you didn't. Unless...
Well, the thing is...
Maybe when I play it again, I will, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it adds frustration because that mechanic, you always get revived. You just die a shitload every battle. And, it doesn't really make you... Because, I mean, it's not like the system is complex and it really allows you to do a lot. The most complex part about it is the skyhook system. And even then, there's enemies that just cheat you off of that, like what are they called?
The big
guys with the
handyman.
The handyman.
Yeah.
Like they would just electrocute it and force you off it anyway. So it's like you couldn't even use it for that fight anyway. Really.
Yeah.
For more than a second. And
the handymen were just there because that guy was another one of those Bioshock. Like we need to have something big.
Yeah, it's like a Big Daddy ripoff kind of thing, and it just didn't make sense.
Because really, in this age where you have these vigors that can let you have superpowers. Why do you have to strap this man in a mechanical suit to do heavy lifting?
And basically remove all of his body except for his head and his heart.
Because in Bioshock it made sense because you need someone that could live underwater to do outside repairs of Rapture. It was okay to have this guy that had to be... And he also served the function of protecting the little sisters, but he made sense.
Yeah.
And this, it's like, we need a guy in a giant mechanical suit to jump around from sky hooks and to electrocute them randomly.
Yeah.
This was needed.
I was going to say, it's not like they can say, well, we needed a labor force. They had one.
Well, that and the other problem, too, is aside from that, is it's like the continuation of the journal entries, which I guess started in System Shock 2, really, where you had the recorded messages. But at least that made sense, because you're on a military ship that was doing research, and they kept research logs.
Yeah.
It's like it made sense.
And in Bioshock...
It was okay. I mean, but it was still like a lot of people were just saying exposition into a recorder. It still wasn't as...
It made a little bit of sense because, like, you could expect to find, since this whole city's been looted, like, things might have been tossed around and things. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually... But you know how, like, you see, like, those ghost events sometimes? It would make more sense. Well, that's kind of ripping off System Shock, too, because System Shock had ghost events where you would hear people talk in exposition. But it's like, that still made more sense than it did in Bioshock. So it's like, I feel like just because it has that shock part of the title, he's forced to do all these things that don't necessarily fit.
And then in Bioshock Infinite, you still find random recorders, but it's like, you'll find, like the professor is recording in the hat shop, and you're like, why was, like, what? Like, did she just, like, make this recording, like,
or Daisy Fitzroy's recording, like, in the middle of, like, an encampment full of soldiers.
Like, we're just keep this here for safekeeping.
Yeah,
We're surrounded. Must hide evidence.
We'll throw it into the enemy camp.
Yeah, so it's like I really want to see what he does without that expectation on him. That's really what I want to see.
Yeah, and I think he does something that a lot of game designers don't do, which is actually try to make games that bring up issues and question them and examine them.
Yeah,
and so I'd be interested to see what he can actually take on.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought that I know some people disagree, but I thought like he tackled some issues of racism in Infinite, and I felt they were done the right way. They weren't over pushed, I think is the big deal about it, but I want to see something new from him that's not tackled to anything else.
Now, we did bring up an interesting point, though, earlier, where we talked about resurrection and kind of easy mode, because you just die and you come back, and you die and you come back, and Bioshock, you kind of did that with Big Daddies, but the cost of that was you died so many times you lost all your stuff, and you didn't want to do that, and oftentimes you had to go back to a save point in Bioshock because you got yourself so far in the hole that you're like, oh crap.
Yeah, because money in that game is actually really important. Like it makes a big deal because you sometimes don't have the ammo that you want, and that money is how you get it. That's why it was important. But in Infinite, what penalty is there except that you have to just start the fight again?
I mean, I think there's just so many more resources available, which makes sense because you're in a utopia site, not some scavenged, vulture-picked rapture city. So in Infinite, it makes sense that there's more abundance, but that also impacts your gameplay experience, because now when I die, it's like, oh no, I lost a little bit of money, I guess I'll just go over here and loot this garbage can. Oh, $50.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about this before, and the problem that we came up with was that when you die in a fight, it doesn't go back to the beginning and make you finish that fight in one go, because then the difficulty would remain. You have to finish that fight in one go. But with the Bioshock Infinite, if you got halfway through the fight, it would resurrect you with half the fight over, and you had full health and some ammo, and it's like, the difficulty it's like, okay, I'm out of ammo, I'll kill myself, and then I'll start again.
I think the only Bioshock at least had one example, I think, of that, where they went the other way, and that was when Songbird on the airship, where you had to finish the fight so quickly because they would
hurt the airship enough. Yeah, and that was the only fight in the game that I felt was difficult.
Yeah, other than that, because really the difficulty in Bioshock fights don't come from a single boss. Usually, it comes from swarm tactics, and you have to.
And they did that a lot in Bioshock, like the infamous scene in Bioshock 1 with the shotgun. The first time you get the shotgun, all the lights turn off, and then one spotlight goes on, and you have to hear them before they enter the circle and attack you. That was like one of my favorite parts.
And the thing is, so in Bioshock Infinite, a lot of your mob fights, it's, oh no, you die. Well, you kill two of them, so the next time you come back is that much easier. Yeah. In Bioshock, they had more, I think, boss fights where it's like you actually like the Doctor is the one that comes to my mind right away, and I'm forgetting names here, but
is that Cohen was the artist. That's right. Yeah.
I'm forgetting the Doctor's name, but his fight was a little challenging actually because he'd run and use the actual medkit station, and he was pretty fast and crazy and.
Dr. Steinman?
Yeah,
Dr. Steinman.
So he actually, I always felt like a good little challenge, because again, you had to beat it in one go. You couldn't just keep dying and running back, because usually if you died and come back, he was back to full health, and you're just
that at least forces you to get the fight. And just really quick before I forget, the studio that he started at was not Ion Shell; it was Looking Glass Studios, because they did Thief, and he was a screenplay writer. But I just wanted to correct that before I forgot about it.
Okay, no, but yeah, so I think Bioshock just. The auto resurrection is nice, and I don't want to be that kind of guy that's like casual gamers, but I think it does reduce the difficulty of the game if it's not properly balanced to still keep the threat going forward.
The only concession I'll give is I understand, I think, why they did it. They knew it was a narrative-focused game, and that the narrative was really the primary reason that a lot of people were going to play it, especially veterans of the series. And so I think they knew that resurrection scheme would allow you to quickly go through the story, and if you got stuck, it allowed you to quickly go through it and not get, stuck on any particular fight.
See, my problem with that is, and I agree that it's a narrative-driven game, but then if you have a narrative-driven game, why are you hiding the narrative tidbits from me? Like, I have to go and loot through shops to find those recorders.
And like, some of those are really important for finding out what's actually happening.
But do you think that's a leftover of traditional RPGs and the way in which they have you do it, where it's like, if you want the side information, you've got to go look for it?
And I think, well, and it's like it's in some ways, yeah. I think more than anything, though, it's a carryover from like we were talking about. Since that was in the last Bioshock, and that was in System Shock
too, yeah.
And it's like we need to bring it forward, and at least that's what I felt like. I felt like if you were starting fresh on this, why would you ever use recorders or gramophones or whatever you want to do? Like, why would you use that as your means for telling your narrative? There's so many other ways to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, and honestly, there are actually tidbits that are really well hidden towards the end of the game when you're in that kind of city hub when you're trying to get into Comstock's house, where there are hidden voxophones that like actually tell you how certain plot points exactly happened instead of leaving it, that are really important, that should not have been optional, and that were.
And I don't care if you hide the voxophones that are like, this is the password to the safe. Like, you know, because those are usually optional.
And there's ones hidden that talk about how all the modern music was in the game.
Is the question really removing them or making them, like, we know, like, how the layout of the level is, that you're going to have to go by this point, so you have to just, like, blow past it and not pay attention to not find that one. So it's a question about where they place them more than do they really need to remove them. It's like, if this is important to the story, it should be someplace that I'm going to have to go for the story, that I'm just going to be like, oh, here's this, and pick it up and then hear it.
I just still think it doesn't make any sense, though. Like, and I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think if you're sticking with the voxophone, you'd have to do that. Some of them need to be more open, because some of them are out in the open and you just find them. But other ones are hidden away in safes that you have to make sure you have lockpicks for, and sometimes you might not have enough at that point.
Yeah, and I guess the way to get around that would have been really easy. Would have been like, Elizabeth found this and gave it to you, because she gives you other stuff throughout the entire game. It could just be like when you get to a part where there's not as much action, she's like, oh, look, I found this. You might find it interesting, and she gives it to you.
Yeah, the thing is, like, thematically speaking, though, like, I think the voxophones are okay. Like, it gives you that, like, period audio kind of sound, but it makes no sense for you to find these people's recordings randomly thrown about the city. Like, people wouldn't just be recording these things and laying them in shops. What would make more sense would be for Elizabeth to open her little riffs.
Yeah,
and be like, oh, look,
and you could see it happening in front of you.
And that would make sense thematically, and maybe it would still be a little tricky for you to get those cues as to when you should be doing them. But at least that would make sense thematically as to why you're able to find out all this information that someone was trying to keep secret, but for some reason left in the butcher shop.
Yeah, because like one of the first voxophones you get is at the Lutece statue before the lottery, the infamous lottery, and you see the Lutece statue change from a man to a woman. You know, but a lot of people missed it. But there's just one where it's talking about a girl who wants to be like Lutece, and it's just sitting on a park bench, and you're like. Like,
one of the things,
why is this even here?
It's like a whole voxophone too. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's like a record disc on a recorder.
Like some girl got home and it's like, and the mom's like, "Where's your voxophone?" "Oh, I left it at the statue." It's like you left the whole. Like, how'd you miss that? And like,
it was heavy, Mom.
See, that thing weighs half as much as me. And like, that's the same story for everybody. They carry them around town. And they get heavy, and people just put them down and forget.
We were at the butcher's shop, and it's like, take this home, take the meat that I just paid for.
Oh, no,
I'll come back for the voxophone.
There's like a bin for you to keep them in, like a little umbrella rack. It's like all this. You just put your voxophones here, hang them up, come back for them when you got time.
Lost a voxophone, not lost and found.
So I think if they weren't trying to be consistent with previous Bioshocks, I think there would have been clever ways to do it, and I think Ken Levine will take advantage. I think it's a good move on his part. It stinks that it comes at the cost of a bunch of jobs, but
yeah, I'm just hoping that, because I know they're trying to set up a system for some of those people to get hired, and they're allowing them time to create their portfolio using company assets, so they have good portfolios. I think they're trying to do it the best way they can, but I mean, still you're losing 90% of your workforce.
To just randomly close a studio. Well, I shouldn't say randomly, but to
abruptly to know that. And I mean, it happened literally once. Episode 2 of Burial at Sea went gold, and I mean, this isn't, just for reference, this isn't and what's the word? This isn't an atypical event. This usually always happens when a AAA studio finishes a project and they don't have another one in the pipeline. It's very common for them to lay off a bunch of people. Like almost all of the people worked on it. So it's not uncommon.
But what's interesting, though, is since they're going to keep the Bioshock franchise.
Well, 2K is, yeah.
So you'd think that 2K would want to keep those people around at least.
Well, no, and 2K, they said 2K were actively trying to keep as many of them as they could.
Okay, good.
But the problem is there's no studio, so it's like, who do you give them to, and are they a good fit for other studios?
I'm kind of surprised that instead of just washing his hands completely of it, that he didn't agree to something like, let me go do what I want to do, and I'll stay on as like a consultant, whoever did they hire in to make another one.
I think that
always be a puppet master in the shadows.
Yeah. I think the problem is I think when Bioshock 2 happened, that left a bad taste in their mouth. Because it didn't, if I remember, it didn't do great, but it didn't do bad. Because it kind of felt like the straight DVD sequel.
Well, it kind of was.
And it kind of was. And I mean, all you have to do is play that studio's newest game, which is the Bureau XCOM Declassified, and you'll figure out why they actually just went under. But I don't know. There's just a lot of problems. I don't see him being able to stay on, and because he just works full the wall in everything he does. That's just the way he is. At least it's the way it's.
And it's probably best for him to make a clean break of it instead of trying to, especially when you're trying to be creative and come up with new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be trenched in your old work.
Yeah.
You know? So sometimes I think it's a good move forward. Yeah. So instead of continuously talking about Ken Levine all night
and Bioshock,
let's talk about another game that uses resurrection maybe a little inadequately, which is Borderlands 2.
Well, then you could lump Borderlands 2 and 1 together because they do it the same way.
I never played Borderlands, so I don't want to give it 2 out of a time. But
okay.
Borderlands 2 probably is the number one candidate for my
most disappointed game of the year award.
It's that whole I'm not mad.
I'm disappointed.
I just expected more out of you, kind of thing. And that's it looked so good. And, and everyone was telling me like, the writing is amazing and blah 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 and Tiny Tina blah 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 and also something I don't know. But I went in there all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and it was a little disappointing.
A little?
Yeah. Well, you don't.
So you know what? I got it. So you know what makes for a really good gameplay experience? Let's just take what people generally hate about MMOs. Let's make a game on that freaking principle. Everything's a fetch quest. Everything in that game is a fetch quest, except for certain story missions. Like, go get 10 of these. Even Tiny Tina sends you on a fetch quest over and over again. Get these bombs. I want to blow up a teddy bear. It's like, what?
Lure this guy over here.
It's like, lure this guy over. It's like, it's all fetch quests. That's what that game is. And it's like, when are people going to realize that's not a good mission structure?
And there's zero difficulty because not only do enemies and loot regenerate, making it like easy to get anything, but then when you die, you keep your progress, just like we were talking about with Bioshock. So you can kill things, kind of realize, come back, kill some more things until you can eventually win. And in some ways, that's a good way to ensure progress, but it also it completely eradicates any difficulty. And and obviously that's the way they wanted to go though, because they don't give you a chance to save. No. Everything's auto-saved and everything's just born through those resurrection devices, which present huge narrative problems in my opinion. Because
clone number 72.
Like Hyperion makes them. You're aware of this.
No.
Bioshock 2. You know where we're going with this.
So Hyperion makes the resurrection devices. You're fighting Hyperion.
The head of Hyperion.
Yeah, the guy, and he's a programmer, so it's not like he's some dolt that doesn't know how the system works. Why would he not just delete your information out of the system? It's like that makes zero sense. Or turn off the systems. There's a financial transaction going on, so that there's like some communication there.
See, that's the issue. The company's not doing well because they've invested in some very poor decisions, and they can't afford to not let you come back and destroy the company.
They're between a rock and a hard place, really.
Your deaths are the only thing keeping this company afloat.
And that's the other thing. So I guess the only reason you like all the other psychos and things out there, like they don't get to use this device. Or if they were smart.
I beg to differ. I think they do get to. That's why they respawn every time.
Yeah, they respawn constantly.
But the thing is, so if people did actually use these devices and were aware of them, you think that they wouldn't just like hang out around it? Because when you come back, you still got weapons and money and goods on you. If I was a bandit,
you're saying the bandits would spawn camp?
I think that's what. If I was a bandit, that's what I'd be doing. Me and a bunch of my buddies just gonna have a bunch of guns. As soon as I see this guy starting for him, I'm just gonna start shooting him. Assuming he had something on him to start with.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom. That's my opinion, though. So I thought I was upset with that, and it eliminates all threat. You know.
And the same thing was in Infinite too. What threat do you have? The only two hard parts of the game were the mother and the end sequence with the airship.
Two bosses where dying infinitely did not help you.
Yeah, because she just kept bringing shit back, and she took forever to kill.
Yeah, and technically in Borderlands, the final boss fight could maybe be viewed as difficult because the monster, the warrior, healed so quickly that If you died and came back, sometimes he's almost back to full health. So in a way,
I'm going to make a concession at this point about Borderlands 2. When I got about 3/4 of the way through the game, I was at a crossroads. I said, okay, I'm either never going to play this again right now, or I can cheat just to see how the game ends. So that's what I did. I gave myself max level, max skill points. I had every skill in every tech tree. Okay, and I got it so I had infinite golden keys. So I just kept opening the chest over and over again at max level until I had a gun that 3-shot the last boss.
See, my whole
I'm making
argument
the concession, so it's like I can't talk about the difficulty of the last boss.
Even though you're worried about the difficulty with the last boss, it's still pseudo difficulty because of the fact that you could grind levels to get high enough level that even if your weapons weren't necessarily as good as they should be to help you with it, you could still get through it because you were high enough level that your skills or other things would help you get through it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm okay with the game saying if you put in, because Final Fantasy had that, you grind enough, any fight will eventually become easy. Whatever. If you put the time in, I'm okay with the boss getting easier. I'd rather that happen than the boss always scaling with you. Because in some ways that makes me feel vindicated in my decision to grind. Because then I'm like, I'm amazing. Yeah.
I don't know.
But that comes back to a question of boss mechanics then. It's like, is it better for a boss to have one single legitimate strategy to get by it, or to always give the option to grind to get through?
And I guess that really comes down to the choice of is this going to be a mechanics driven game or a narrative driven game?
And I think this is getting into one of my biggest complaints about Borderlands 2 in general is it's trying to be two things and it's not good at either.
Yeah.
It is not a shooter. No matter how much you want to tell me that thing is a shooter, it is not a shooter because the RPG mechanics behind the shooting make it not a shooter. Yeah. It is an RPG. But the problem is they market it as a shooter, and it's not. And so it's like I want to play it like a shooter, but I can't.
Yeah, and narratively speaking, it just starts. They have so many silly, random side quests. It's like there's serious moments, like, oh, this person just died. It's really serious. No, go pick up 10 things of elephant dung.
Well, and a good example is they said that they were trying to make Handsome Jack a good villain, but that you cared about him, and I'm like. The only funny part of the game is right in the beginning when he's talking about that horse.
The unicorn?
What's the horse that he says he's
making? It's not a unicorn. It's a pony. And
it's a pony
made of diamonds.
Made of diamonds. And what was it called?
Butt Stallion.
Butt Stallion. And that was the only part I thought was funny because when he kills, spoiler alert, Bloodwing. It's that part, I didn't give a shit about that bird. Not one bit. I had no desire to care.
My only build-up for having any bit of care was because of the fact that you had to establish connection from the previous game with that character.
Well, I mean, even then, I guess...
But that's it. There was no reason for your character to really give two shits.
Because I think the game also would have been better is just to know it's a comedy-based RPG game. Just stick with comedy. Because the fact that they threw in the serious stuff, because the tone felt weird, it actually felt weird to me. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but when those serious scenes happen, I'm like, this does not fit the universe you've told me.
Yeah, they try to have this big serious build-up, oh no, Bloodwing's dead, but also there's Handsome Jack still cracking wise, and I guess they're trying to make this setup where you're angry that he's taking everything so casually.
Yeah,
but the problem is it's not just him. It's not just Handsome Jack that's being silly. Everyone in the whole game is being silly, except for that one person that's having a serious moment every now and then.
Yeah, well, and everyone in that game is a silly psychopath. That's the character archetype.
Why do you think they're stuck on that planet?
It's silly psychopath again. Woo!
Yeah. No, and it's just it's a game where you look at it and it's got the potential to be good, but you're just disappointed in the way it came out.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do though? What are you gonna do other than refuse to buy the third one and then buy the third one that's on Steam sale?
Well, at least you're honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I bought it. I think we got it really cheap when it came out, and that's the only reason I got it. I got it for $26 at launch.
I only got it because I wanted to play it with other people. That was the only reason I bought it.
Even then,
I
speaking of games you buy for other people,
I know a lot of people were into it and stuff, and it's I just really didn't have a lot of desire to play the original one, and then the second one came out and it was a little bit less, and then I still ended up buying it.
Well, I played Borderlands 1 with a friend of mine, which is Wing Commander, but that's not his real name, obviously. But, like, we played it just because it was fun to play together. Like, we'd mock each other, and that's the only reason it was really fun.
Well, it's the whole game is built around being silly and having fun being silly.
Yeah.
Like, that's how the game was built, and, like, that's where the game shines.
Yeah.
When it tries to do anything else, it creates this kind of, and I'll say dissonance, but we won't go the full distance there. But it creates this feeling where you're just like, things don't feel right. They're not meshing right. And they're not executed properly. You know, if it's trying to be a really good, tough mechanical shooter, then it's not that. And when it tries to be a very stirring and feeling narrative-driven game, it's not that. But when it tries to make dick jokes, okay.
And honestly, some of them made me laugh a lot because they were done the right way. But, like, other than that, that's it.
I just think that there's just so many things that just don't work right in it that it's like you could pick any one aspect of the game and be like, if they would have tweaked this just a little bit, I might have been more happy with it. And it's like one of the things is like how grindy it is. It's like if they would have tweaked it just a little bit with like the drops, so it's like either more of a guaranteed drop on certain stuff other than just things that drop from bosses always dropping from that boss. Yeah. And like maybe you being able to modify stuff yourself.
It's like you said, they tried to make, I guess, an MMO kind of thing where bosses have certain drops and you have to grind that boss if you want to get certain items sometimes. It's
really when it comes down to it. The game is just it's mediocre across the board. The plot's mediocre, the mechanics are mediocre, everything is mediocre in it. Nothing stands out as good.
Yeah, and I think that's just you see a lot of games suffer from that where they try to do everything and they don't focus on what kind of experience they want to deliver the player. Yeah. They're too busy focused on trying to meet all these random, like, oh, let's make it a good shooter and let's make it a good thing. But in terms of, like, let's deliver a very succinct experience to the player, they kind of let their minds wander and go to different things. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Todd Howard. I was.
Do you know who Todd Howard is?
No.
Okay, I was just curious because, like, Todd Howard is he the creative director?
Yeah, he's
of
like
Bethesda Studios.
He's like the big guy behind Skyrim and all.
He's been doing Elder Scrolls since Morrowind, and I don't know if he did Arena and Daggerfall or not as well, but
he's been around forever. I don't remember if he actually did those or not. Let me go check real quick.
Yeah, it's like strictly.
Well, and that's why it's like Skyrim
franchise, or not Skyrim, but the
Elder Scrolls. No, he did Fallout 3 too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's. I think he's Bethesda's creative director.
Yeah, he's been there since Arena.
Okay, so isn't that the second one?
He did Arena, Daggerfall. I think it was Arena. I don't know.
Arena, because Arena was not. I thought that was an offshoot game. Like there was something Daggerfall, and then Arena was like an offshoot, and then, or maybe Arena was one.
To be honest, you're getting to the stage where I can't find these games anymore because
they were on GOG, I think,
because they were put out so long ago.
I'm gonna look that up.
But no, Todd Howard is a very much his game philosophy is focused on the experience you're trying to deliver the player, and things like Skyrim and Fallout deliver on that. You can tell that he is going for a certain way that he wants you to feel while you're playing his game, and you get that. And I'm not just it's easy to pick a successful franchise and be like, that guy knows what he's doing.
Okay, just really quick, I have to throw this in there. So, Arena was the first one, Elder Scrolls game. Mm-hmm. So he's been there since day one. But before Elder Scrolls development history at Bethesda, prior working to Elder Scrolls, Bethesda worked predominantly with sports and action games, such as, Hockey League Simulator, NCAA Basketball Road to the Final Four, 91 and 92 edition, and Wayne Gretzky Hockey.
Gotta pick something to make money off of.
And then they went to Elder Scrolls.
Well, Bethesda, they also made the Home Alone game.
Yeah, one of the Home Alone games. Yeah, you're right.
Bethesda had a mistake, a trouble. It was like their troubled past they try to forget about it. Bunch of awkward photos and things they just rather not have other people see.
Yeah, I think he knows it's like, and it's also released that, what's the one website you told me about where it talks about like the 8 things, the main experiences of game design, right? And like, he knows that combat, while it's a part of the game and it's how you explore it, that's not really what the game is about. Yeah. It's about the exploring somewhere you really want to explore and delve into. And I guess some of what I call the hoarding. Yeah. You want to hoard everything.
And really, like, so Todd Howard works with Jeremy Soule,
the composer of the I'm trying to remember series. But Jeremy Soule, as I thought was about.
I don't know about the pronunciation. It's Seoule or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
brilliant composer.
But no, they talked about how they tried to make the music built the music to be something where it's like a companion for you as you're exploring this world. So you always felt like you had this constant companion you're traveling around with, and it's all built around this idea of exploration. And it's like that's what the game focuses kind of around. And yeah, there's that kind of wish fulfillment of you being the one true savior of the world, and there's other game design elements in there.
Yeah.
But the game stays true to its experience that it wants to give you. You're exploring this crazy mystical land with all these different monsters and histories and stories, and you're having a great time doing it. And then Borderlands is like, you're here because you want to get the vault, kind of, but the vault's also just really a giant monster.
Again.
Disappointment.
The first game, that's what everyone complained about. They're like, I wanted to find the vault. And you open it, and it's a freaking Cthulhu tentacle monster, Japanese, hentai star. And it's like, and then you kill it, and you don't get shit for it. And then everyone's like, wait, I got this whole game to get a vault. And then a monster popped out, and the game's over.
And not only that, there are vault hunters. Enough that it's a term that people use. And it's not because there's apparently a payoff. It's like all these people just want to get this giant monster, or they're chasing the idea that there might be money.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there's no verified, like...
As a vault hunter, you're not allowed to know that you're actually a part of a cult and you're being sacrificed to the monster. And that's why there's been so many over the years.
Yeah. It's just funny to me where it's like, no, there's vault hunters. Everyone knows, like, oh, vault hunters. That's a term that we use for those adventurers that are stupid enough to randomly go after something they don't know is even there.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we've gone on for probably over 30 minutes now, so we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk about some other video game things, and maybe not talk about Bioshock.
Anymore.
No promises, though.
Free as the dealsies.
And we're back. We went away and got some hydration so that you could keep hearing our silky smooth voices.
It really helped.
So now we're going to continue our conversation by, I think, exploring a few more games that might fall under the category of the I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Do you have any games that would fit that description there, Mr.
I feel
Mr.
like
Kadamus?
you're going to push my button. And I don't want to
Is it
talk
a big
about
red
it.
one?
It's a big red one with zombies in it, and I don't want to talk about it.
This is the time to vent.
There's a lot of games.
This is a place
zombies
for
in it.
healing.
How about I let you take that copy and then I'll join in on it.
Okay. So,
I can talk about the YS7.
all right, so I'll lead the way then.
Okay.
So there's a game that I bought recently on a Humble Bundle sale called Dead Island. And Dead Island looked really good. It's got all the graphics, and it's got the weapons, and you hit the zombies with the beach balls, and it's a good time.
And sometimes you kick them for fun.
But that's what it looks like, Elite. But then you start playing it, and you're just disappointed. Like your kid came home with cigarettes, and you're just like, I've raised you better. No,
I have never had a game's mechanics and inventory system fight me so hard about not playing it. Like, that game screams, do not play me, I'm stupid.
Because, what everyone loves is weapon durability. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, we'll get in that later.
Did the Humble Bundle come with the expansion to the game?
The Red Rider DLC?
Maybe? I don't remember.
It's not Red Rider, it's something else.
It's
it's
where
like the
you
Rider
play
Wider.
you play as the, like, I don't know what he is, general, or I don't know what the hell he is, what ranking he was.
Lifeguard?
Yes.
Not the lifeguard.
He's a character you don't encounter until pretty far late into the game.
Yeah, I didn't get that far.
I don't blame you. I didn't get that far into the game, but I played the expansion.
We didn't get more than 2 hours in.
I was frustrated when my weapon broke. But then, they do give you a pretty ready supply of it. So you're like, okay, I don't mind my weapons breaking if I'm always able just to pick up new things. But then they make such a big deal out of saying, well, now you can upgrade weapons. And then their whole system for equipping and auto-equipping, it's just awful. Because you'll be out there fighting away, and you'll pick up a weapon, and you have your really upgraded, pipe. Because that's what you got. You ripped it off the wall, and now you're beating people with it. But anyway, so you
must have
upgraded
been poor, because I at least had a crowbar.
So you upgrade this pipe. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, you're running around, you're grabbing weapons as you can, because there's not that many of them. You want to kind of get them as you can. And you pick up an ore, and it's like, well, this is obviously what you want more. We can't do a simple comparison and see which one's better. And we can't even just let you keep whichever one you had equipped. We're just going to auto-equip every piece of garbage that you pick up.
Okay, and then
The
it gets into
solution
the
is
other
you need
problem.
to throw more items. just throw the shit.
No,
so it gets out of your
did you
inventory.
throw any? Because it gets fun when you actually get throwing knives, but that we never got that far. But anyway,
That's
so
only the one character
the problem
designed for that
is
really
weapon
good.
durability. The weapon durability makes no sense. You pick up a rusted pipe. Yes, it's rusted. Yes, it's probably used. If I hit 5 zombies and a metal pipe breaks, that wasn't a good pipe. I'm just saying.
Well,
it
how
makes
many-
more sense when you take a broken ore and you hit someone 7 times and the stick breaks. That's at least a logical jump that I can accept.
Have you ever used a pipe to hit someone over the head? Because how would you know?
Are you talking about in real life?
Yeah.
What was the pipe made of wood?
No.
For all you know, it's one of them paper mache pipes that they use in those tropical island resorts.
Yeah, they don't actually have running water anywhere. it's just to give you that illusion.
I think the key is I have never had a game where weapon durability has made my experience better. Can you
Yeah,
think
actually,
of anything?
when they removed weapon durability out of Oblivion in Skyrim, that was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because like I'd be mid dungeon, it's like your sword broke. Shit.
I cannot think of a single time where I was glad there was weapon durability. Because it's never... Yes, it has that quote-unquote degree of realism, but that's not something
Wait, Dark
I
Souls
want.
has weapon durability, right?
Yes, but
But their durability is so high that it doesn't... Like, you just repair it when you go back, which you have to do anyway.
But is your experience made better by that? Or is that just another, like... Ugh.
Well, no, at least that fits within that world, though. Because
I was
that's
gonna
the
say,
point of that whole
was
game.
the game I was thinking of, and it does not bother me in that game, particularly in the fact that you have weapons that have special abilities that when you use them, they use up quite a bit of durability very quickly. But you have multiple ways to recover durability. You can go to an actual blacksmith and have them repair it.
But they even
You
have
can get the
repair
kit.
kits, can't you?
You can get the kit to repair it yourself, or you can get an item where you can do it in the field without having to be at
But I
a
mean,
bonfire.
I'm not kidding. Like, I played one of the game, like, you get a weapon really early, the dragon sword, right? Off the dragon's tail.
Yes.
And you just use it, and durability doesn't go down that fast. Like, it doesn't hinder you at all. It's not like Oblivion, they would break incredibly quick.
It's kind of
Not
like
Dead Island
if
quick,
you
but-
get to the point, and the thing too is the game also warns you before it breaks. Now the damage goes down once it gives you the first warning, but it doesn't go to zero.
Yeah,
then
and
once
it
you go
says your
to
weapon's
zero,
about to break.
When
And
you go to
it'll
zero,
tell you,
then it
like-
no longer does any real damage.
It's not like in Oblivion where all of a sudden you're just not holding a weapon. You're like, where the hell did the thing go?
Where'd my
It's
break
back
sword?
there in pieces.
You know, it's,
Oh.
No, it doesn't bother me that much in that game, and only like from your own like like it happens. You're like, oh shit, I forgot to repair this crap for a while.
Yeah. So I guess, to be honest, I haven't played Dark Souls yet. That's been a game that's been on my queue, but I haven't quite manned up yet and taken up the cup there.
that's reasonable, man. That game is an undertaking.
I'd say I'm starting to play it again for the
Third time?
No, I think fourth. Because I played through once by myself,
Okay.
and then I played through a majority of it with you again a second time. Plus, I had another character in there that I did, and then I was playing it with Pauscat for a while, and then now I'm playing it with Cynic.
Jeez. I mean, just... so I have 40 hours logged on Dark Souls. And I'm stuck at what's considered a really pissy part, and that's that stupid... What do they call it? Low Town? No, it's not Low Town, but it's the part where you can get poisoned everywhere, and there are dogs everywhere.
This game sounds really fun.
Dogs.
Yeah, they have to... It's when you're... Okay, so you know how you're going through all, like... Where it's all the wooden platforms that you go through?
Yeah.
And then you get... Then
swamp.
you go down to the swamp, and that's where the spider boss is.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm at, and...
Okay.
So I beat that... What's that name? Helga or Mildred? The man-eater?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What's
The
her name? Is that her
NPC
name?
spawns. Yeah. it's
Yeah, and I
Mildred
beat
the
her,
Man-Eater.
and it's not that I find the spider boss too hard. I just got to the point where I said, if the rest of the game is going to be that slow trudge, I don't want to do it. Because it's like, it feels good when you trudge through and you beat it, but that area, from what I've heard online, is notorious.
Oh, yeah, everything
Like,
up to
that
point.
section is just pissy as hell.
From the second you go down into the sewers to the second you get to that boss, it is all awful.
Yes, and like, everyone warned me about it, and like,
And it's like, and the worst part about it is if you didn't do some other stuff to prep for it, it makes it that much worse.
Yeah.
And
It's not that the game's
You
bad.
are not prepared.
I am actually saying that Dark Souls. The only problem I have with Dark Souls is it's just the mechanics in that game. I think I understand that what they're going for. They're going for when you press the attack button, you're committed to it. He's going to finish the swing, whether you're going to be hit or not. I understand the idea because like Monster Hunter does that too. You have to commit to your moves and know the repercussions of doing it. That's fine, but sometimes I feel like that game is just douchey, and its sole purpose is to be douchey. And why would you want to play a game where its sole purpose is to be douchey? Because you can play a game that's hard like YS, but it's not douchey.
And that's aside from the fact that people can just come in and mess with you.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like the Hollow is really just, it's them being douchey for douchey's sake. Like, really, that's what it is. And, like, people thrive on being that troll and that douche.
They just really like cleaning up.
I do, and I understand
because aside
all
from
of that,
but like the atmosphere of that game is so good. The atmosphere it gives you is spot on, and it has that Skyrim like exploration element to it. You want to explore because it looks so cool.
But the thing is because the mechanics are so strict in that game, it gives you so much satisfaction when you actually beat.
No,
it.
and that's what I'm saying. It does do that well too. And it's like I'm not saying that game's bad. I'm not saying that at all.
And it's also one of those games where it's like, if you play it multiple times, you're playing it again because you want... It's like, you know what? I really didn't like the way some of this stuff was going. I can do better. And you will do better because the game teaches you how to play the game better.
And it does so without any tutorials.
And I think you're onto something where you're talking about how in that game durability is not a big issue because as you guys were talking, you know, the game has a very distinct feel and aesthetic to it. And a Fallout is another game that has that kind of a gritty feel to it, and weapon durabilities in Fallout, but it feels okay in Fallout.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
You know, and so it's okay if it's going along with the narrative and feeling okay, but if it's this kind of like, okay, I understand it's a survival horror game, a zombie game for Dead Island, but no one wants to like. That's just you're taking a little too far. Like it's unrealistic that my things would break this fast anyway.
It's the whole problem with that game too. Is it's like it wants to be Left 4 Dead and be an RPG at the same time, and
it doesn't do any of it well.
Well, you can't. It just cannot handle. Like I remember the biggest frustration I had was like we had to gather 5 bottles of alcohol for this one guy that's just hanging out in the shed.
Just a drunk Australian sitting in his shed.
He's like, oh man, what's going on? Zombies or something?
I fought off zombies and got drunk in here, and now I have a hangover and I want more alcohol. And you're like, why would I get you alcohol?
Are you not concerned about the
zombies? Because I have this slightly shinier pipe I'll rip off the wall and give to you. But it's zombie slaying +2.
The problem was I picked up a bottle of alcohol, had auto-equipped it, and I drank some of it. And I'm just like, wait, no, I don't want this. And then you get drunk.
Yeah.
A mechanic of like it's terrible because we're being attacked by zombies.
No, and this happened in the middle of a fight.
Over.
Like in the middle of a fight, because we picked up a bottle and we're like, okay, obviously you wouldn't equip a bottle of alcohol right in your weapon slot. Or if you did, you would at least be able to swing it and it'd be like a one-hit kind of thing and it'd break or something. Whatever. That would at least be realistic. But no, it's like, nope, you drink in the middle of a zombie fight and get drunk. It's like, what? Come on.
Well, obviously, you just
come on,
a whole bottle.
Come on. You heard the theme song of the game before you even started playing it. You knew what you were getting into. Who do you voodoo?
So yes, that is my game that I just...
Yeah, it's like, and I think the reason that games like Fallout and kind of go back a little bit, and the reason they get away with those durability problems is because in Fallout you can pick up weapons that are the same type and repair them on the spot. It's like, okay, it's getting low, I'll repair it.
Well, I was going to say the other thing too is like if you look at
same with Dark Souls.
A direct comparison of Fallout's durability to the one in Dead Island is it's the same kind of a system, but the difference is I make a weapon that is physically better than the other weapon. Where in Fallout, it's like, I just found another exact same weapon. There's not that level of customization in it.
Yeah.
Where I'm not taking this and making this better. So therefore, it's just like, oh, these are similar.
Right?
I can take the parts out of this one and put it in this one to make this one work.
And they last longer. The durability on Fallout.
Correct.
It's not, I shot 3 shots. Okay. No, new gun. Okay.
No, I'll give it.
Well, you guys didn't get any guns yet when you were playing, did you?
No, I mean...
The guns, if I remember correctly, have no durability. But good luck finding ammo.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
It doesn't work right in the game. I agree. I played it. I stopped playing it. I played through the one campaign. So the other problem too in that game is the scaling. I guess they changed it because they weren't happy with it. Before, things had set levels. So you went to a certain area and all the mobs were set level in that area. Well, they changed it so because I think people were having problems with they had like, oh, I need to grind to get to this next area. So like, but I don't want to go over here and grind. I'd rather grind right here. So they adjusted it so the mobs all adjust to your level.
Yeah.
Which I guess gives more of a consistent difficulty throughout the game, but
yeah,
it's just like now I have no reason to leave this starting area because I can grind up high enough to be able to do cool stuff and then go on. And it's
and that's like it's such a hard decision to make. I think is to say, do I have zones of monsters that are a level appropriate, or do I have everything just scale with you automatically? Because like each one offers different things, and I think it ultimately comes down to how you're trying to guide the player's experience.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem comes down to the fact of you have to know what you're doing before you start implementing it. And sometimes I think people implement one way when they really wanted to implement it the other way, and then they go back and they change it. But because of some other changes they made to do the first implementation, they don't fix those, and it doesn't work right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
like there's some games I played where things scale and it works wonderfully, and there's other things where things don't scale and it just doesn't work.
So speaking of things that don't work, William, how are you doing? Do you have a game that doesn't work? A game that disappoints you?
A game that disappoints me, yeah. Quick bias alert. I am a huge Ys fan, or YS, depending on if you're a fan of the series or not. Huge fan of the series. I started with Oath and Felghana on Steam when they did the re-release, I think a couple years ago. And same with Origin. I loved it. And then I was like, okay, well, I just got a PS Vita. I was like, I'm going to play the ones on that too.
Like one of the few people that actually bought a PS Vita.
I know, I'm one of the few people, and I love that thing to death. But I'm playing YS7, which was made in 2010. And it was the game where they completely changed the franchise. You now have 3 people that you control. Each one is good at attacking a certain type. Like Adol, is it Adol? Is that how they pronounce it, Eban? Or Adol? Or I don't know. I never really looked it up. But I think it's Adol Christensen. Or Christian.
I think you're right.
Like
but I wanted to
but
say
Adol's like
Adol
a slash. And then like
for
other...
some
and
reason,
like
but that just seems
Dogi
silly.
is... I think a punch attack, and then another one's a piercing. So it's like, depending which enemy, you have to switch to the right person. That's fine. But the problem is they took your jump ability out, and they have a dodge ability, which is fine, but they decided that they were going to put unblockable boss attacks in it. And anyone who's played YS before will know that when a boss hits you, it does just an immense amount of damage to your character.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels against, because the game it has a level up mechanic, but really it's about skill, learning the boss attacks, dodging it, and reacting, and learning. And basically, they said, "No, there's unblockable attacks. Screw you. You have healing items. That's their excuse out of it.
We gave you healing items. Use them."
And all it does is make you frustrated. And then I got to the last boss of the game. Well, and there's 2 of them that you have to do in a row. And basically, I wasn't high enough level, and everyone online was like, "Oh, you have to be like level 62 and above." And it would take me like 5 hours of leveling to get there, and I just said, "I'm done with it." I just stopped.
It's not because it was a high enough level, not because like you needed to unlock certain skills. It was like you needed to be high enough to absorb those instant hits.
To even survive. And I just didn't want to deal with it, so I just stopped playing it. I was really disappointed.
It's a problem in so many games.
And it's okay. The other part I completely forgot about this. So you start the game and like you find this random altar that's like, oh, you're the fabled dragon warrior, blah blah blah. You have to go to the other dragon altars, and you're like, okay. And each one kind of gives you a new snippet. And you're like, okay, I want to go to each of these. And then the game's like, oh, here's a quick transfer feature. You can warp around and have all this fun. And then halfway through the game, they're like, well, actually, you have to go back to each of the altars because there's actually a whole other dungeon behind that altar that you didn't know about. But you have to go do it again. And, the world changed. You can't warp anymore. So you have to rewalk the whole world map to get back to the place to go back and do a dungeon again.
Yay.
And it's like, at that point, I almost said, fuck it, I'm done, I'm out.
Weren't you excited about the additional gameplay?
Yeah, and it's like, at that point, it's like, oh, come on.
That's the thing. Like, back in the day, you had to extend gameplay to give people their money worth out of the
This
game.
is made in 2010.
Yeah, it's like nowadays, no, we don't need you to waste our time with games. Give me an experience that's a good one, and don't waste my time.
Okay, and then they released another YS or Ys game.
Someone's going to argue with you that all video games are a waste of time.
Well, they could die.
Yeah, they can. The new Ys game that's on Vita, the Memories of Salsetta, they basically fixed every gripe I just talked about from step 1. The game explains itself very up front. It says, this is how you need to play it to be successful. It's like, really, does it have to be in there? Probably not, but it's nice if you want to know it's there. And the warping is from step one. They don't take it away. It's no backtracking. It's like, oh, okay, we'll just go. Have fun. It's like they fixed every problem. It's like...
I guess I'm not... I think we talked about this before. I'm not against instant hit bosses, per se. But they have to be framed correctly. And like the game has to be built so that those are acceptable. You know,
I guess the problem I've had, and maybe it's...
Play more Dark Souls.
it's one of those
They're
things
not
that...
insta hits, but
they might as well be.
Yeah.
Depending on how you build your character, they might be.
The problem I have is, like, in the YS games of past, like, the ones I played, which was Oath and Felghana and Origin, there could be boss fights where you would never get hit, not one time, if you knew how to beat it. And it became a skill game. Even if you were under-leveled, you could beat a boss if you could learn the skill. In this game, that's not the case. It basically makes you grind everything out. Mm-hmm. And that's, I guess, my bigger problem with it, is it just feels sloppily implemented.
You feel like it's an artificial way to increase difficulty.
Right, instead of actually making it difficult.
Yeah. And it's like, so, again, I think I agree with that to the sense that if you have auto hits, you're forcing either a time limit on your player or you're forcing him to use healing items, you know. Either way, you're forcing him to do something outside of maybe what you intended to be the game's primary skill.
Especially when that series in general touts itself as a skill-based action game with levels. That's the problem. It takes the skill out of it when you have auto hits. It's like it defeats the purpose of what it's made to do.
And I think there's something to be said for games that use auto hits as a means for giving a game a countdown, but that doesn't sound like this was the case here. Because I think it's okay to have, like, for example, Borderlands 2 would have been a great time to have that final boss maybe have that lava level rising or something, or maybe he lets out a heat wave and it does instant damage or something. Because that would have built, like, you need to hurry up and kill him because he will instant kill you if you do not.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Okay, that's good. And if I want him to survive a little bit longer, I'll pop some healing items. But hurry up and kill him because he's the kind of villain that makes sense. He has the godlike powers almost. He's gigantic. You know, it makes sense that he would be able to do attacks that I couldn't dodge, and you use that as a means to give me a countdown for how fast I need to do it. That makes sense within the game. Awesome. But don't just throw it in there as this, like, afterthought on, we need to make this fight harder. Let's do this so that people have to use more healing items and stuff and just extend the combat.
Well, it's kind of like when a game just forces you to do the same thing over and over again, and it's like the pseudo difficulty, and it's like, how do we make this boss harder? We gave it more health, so now instead of dodging these attacks 3 times, you do it 6 times.
Well, the thing is too, and this is that bothered me with Zelda games, to be honest. Is Zelda you had to learn the routine, but then it's like now you just have to repeat this procedure for this boss 3 or 4 or 5 times or whatever it was, and it's like.
When you had the boss that was really like a mini boss to some other boss later that was like, oh, we've done this before, now I gotta do this again.
Yeah. And it's just, that always bothered me when you get those kind of scenarios where they're just saying, just keep repeating what you've been doing and just don't mess up, because if you mess up, you'll be dead.
No.
In a way, it's good because that's more skill-based than having the instant damage as a countdown. But in a way, that's my cat.
Yeah, I know.
But in a way, it's kind of a countdown on its own. Mm-hmm. If you a skill challenge by itself is also a kind of countdown, because a human being can usually only execute perfectly so many times. You're going to mess up eventually. So you could argue that that's kind of its own countdown, any kind of skill-based challenge. But now we're getting all into this philosophy of games.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Goal, what kind of game were you disappointed in, and that you took the macaroni art down from the fridge for?
Well, we've already hit on a couple.
Just pick a bad game. It's not like there's a lack of them.
I was looking through, because I got, games on Steam that unfortunately I own that I'm very disappointed that I own.
So it's not a matter of what game to pick. It's more like, which one do I start with?
It's more of like, which one of these haven't we talked about that I'm really, really angry about?
I can tell you that
I have
plenty of discussions.
Yeah, I have to interject something randomly until he can, because this is actually, I found this really funny. Have you heard about the thing called Twitch Plays Pokemon? Have you heard about this?
I got an email about it the other day, but actually didn't look into it.
Okay, do you know about this?
No. Nothing.
Okay, so what they did, this is brilliant, and it's hilarious the result that happened. I forget who put it on. It's Twitch Plays Pokemon, so I'm guessing it's Twitch. But what they did is they created a chat bot that when you're watching this Twitch stream, which is an emulated Pokemon Red and Blue. I think they're doing Red or Blue. I can't remember which one.
Okay.
That when
Well,
people
they're basically the
type,
same game.
when people type right, the character will move right. When it clicks left, the cursor will go left or the character will go left. Okay? So the chat tells the game how to play. And they said, go try to beat the game. Okay? So 9.5 million views later.
Okay. There's 9.5 million people left.
So,
left,
so this
left,
is a long
left.
ordeal. Yes. And there are screenshots where you just see right, left, right, left. And apparently there's a maze. I don't remember this maze when I played it like a long time ago, but there's a maze. And the character was going in circles for hours, just going like left, right, up, down. And like, because they were purposely doing it to be funny. The goal was to see if through anarchy they could beat it. And apparently they got to the first like Team Rocket. I guess it might be yellow because I think that's when they put Team Rocket in, didn't they?
Ooh.
They got to like the first Team Rocket layer like without problem and like, but then they found out that the game was taking so long to do that they decided to implement instead of an anarchy-based system like they had, they wanted to do a democracy-based system where you vote on what to do. But you only get two options, right? You have to vote left or right. Well, the people revolted. They didn't want that. They wanted the complete anarchy. So they started typing in the command start space 9, which means press the start button 9 times in a row. So every time they'd be like, go right, and then you'd see a start menu go and not because someone told it. So people just start pressing start and enter over and over again. So just keep an opening and closing the start menu, making it impossible to play the game anymore until the anarchy system was put back.
See, the only problem with the anarchy system is
Peasants are revolting.
it's like watching the speed competitions when they have like their little Adreno or Raspberry Pis play the games and stuff. They purposely do shit you couldn't normally do because they program it into it and then they hook it up to a physical old console to play the game and stuff. It's exactly like that would be the way in which someone would beat it. Is someone would set up a bot that would quickly type commands so fast that no one else could get commands in between theirs and would just issue a series of commands to get it all the way to where it needs to be to the next section. And it's like...
Yeah, it started on February
Bum rushing
14th.
in.
And
and
4
won't
days later...
finish for 2 years.
4 days later, gamers have finally managed to reach the Team Rock hideout. The road, and this is the road to the hideout was not easy, with thousands of gamers demanding numerous actions.
Run away! Every fight, run away.
Apparently, there's 20 to 40 seconds of lag per input. So, like,
Holy
they were
crap.
putting in thousands of responses, and then you had to wait for it all to play out.
Oh. That sounds awful.
Still
Here,
really immersive.
I know they can't see this on the podcast, but so they're in the Pokemart, and all they're trying to do is put a Pokemon into the Pokemart, okay? And look, it's left, B, left, up, left, up, left, up, up, left. And they're put in order when they're received.
That sounds like a terrible
It's a terrible
way to
idea,
play a game.
but it's hilarious that they're doing it.
Speaking of terrible ideas.
We should end this podcast.
No. I was
Too soon.
Too soon.
Goal hasn't spoken.
Spoken?
Maybe it is getting a little late and we need
Yeah,
to
I think
end
it's time to go.
this.
No kidding, now!
The Alphaville.
Just a second, I'll be right back. Come on, Pat.
Hurry back. I think I've made my decision.
You did?
Yeah.
Go ahead and start.
I think I'm gonna go with Dungeon Defenders.
Dungeon Defenders.
Did you play that?
Nope.
Thank God.
Better for it.
Yeah, we
I
were
looked into
playing. Like we played the demo and we put a lot of hours into the demo, considering you couldn't go that far. And I was like, well, might as well buy the game. Put a lot of hours in the demo. Got that, and it's a case of, and finding it more and more with a lot of games. You buy into a game where they're not completely done making adjustments to it.
Yeah.
And this was not... It wasn't the case of like, oh, I pre-bought and I got access to an alpha or anything. It was this was the full game. And they just kept screwing with it. And my problem is by the end of it, they took it from being a game that was heavily desktop defense, and they changed it to...
Sorry, derailing the conversation.
Okay. They changed it to where it's just completely grind, and it completely ruined the game for me, because it wasn't about whether or not you could come up with a legitimate strategy to set up to beat the game by killing the creeps. It became about how well equipped could you get your character and your levels maxed? That way you could just
So was
plow
that the
through it.
trailer was deceiving, or was it something where they
No,
actually
no,
The
no,
changed
gameplay
it?
actually changed.
The gameplay changed.
like,
It started as like an Orcs Must Die 2 scenario where its proper placement and strategic advantage would give you a win, even
And
if you were under.
Was this changed like from beta to release, or was this just
No, this
changed?
No,
was
it was
released
already
this way.
released. That was the biggest problem.
Oh, wow.
It's like this wasn't an alpha, this wasn't a beta. This was the full game, but they just didn't have it to where they wanted it to be. And as they continued to screw with the game, the game got worse.
So they kind of changed. Like, so some people might have bought a game, enjoyed playing a different game, and then they switched it on them.
Yeah, and that's
Correct.
exactly what happened
Huh.
with him.
And
because
it
it
just-
started as an
oh.
Orcs Must Die 2 and then became a grind fest.
Exactly, and that was the problem with it. Was it just, and the other thing too was you had set characters, and set characters had access to different equipment, so you couldn't put down certain traps unless you were a certain character. Now there was an option to switch between characters if you had multiple ones leveled, but then you had to grind up and level multiple characters to get their gear done and their stuff done right, and then you needed to farm the weapons to make them better. Which, while in principle I don't really appreciate that much, anyways. They made it worse because it got to the point of, well, now you need the person who's the best equipped, and you could play with other people, but playing with other people, you didn't want to play with them if their characters were shittier equipped, because then it's like,
You could tell them to
you
go
can
crack.
play, and you can help me shoot stuff when the waves are coming, because you have that whole Orcs Must Die where you're running around
Yeah.
shooting stuff, as well as your defenses doing their job. But that person's not allowed to put anything down because they're not equipped well enough to be able to kill how difficult the stuff is we're doing. And it's like, only I can put stuff
So
down.
you can bring dead weight along with you if you want.
Correct, which increased the difficulty, which gave you like better score or better loot or better EXP. I don't even remember. It's been so long
Would
since
you like
I
to
played
make
it.
things purposefully harder on yourself?
Exactly. And
If
then
so, here's my cousin Steve. Nah.
and it just like, you bought a game that was a particular way, and then that game is no longer that way as it continued to keep going.
It's
and
actually that's an
it
interesting
just felt like they
issue.
milked the hell out of it.
Because
too.
games nowadays are starting, especially with Steam and things, you're starting to get these whole like game ideas, games of subscriptions. Like you're not buying a product and keeping that product. You're buying like almost a service nowadays on a lot of these different games. And the developers kind of have the right to change those things as they see fit. So we like to think that most of the time it's for the better, but a lot of the times it's not. At least, I shouldn't say a lot of the times, but not everyone's going to agree with the changes made, and not everyone's going to be happy that the fact that the product they bought changed. I mean, if you came home and like someone had switched around some of the things on your computer, and they said, "Oh, we decided we didn't like it the way it was before, so we switched this around," and you're like, "Wait."
Well, that does happen. If you look at like, okay, we had, XP did phenomenally well and people were happy with it, and then they came out with Vista and people were like, no, we don't like Vista. And then they come out with 7, it's like everyone's happy with it, and then they do radical changes for 8 where they make it like really good for touch screens, and then people are like, what the hell, I can't use this, change it back.
And that's the problem, I think, is it's an interesting idea in terms of just what are you buying.
Well,
actually,
it
when you
comes
buy
back
a
to the other
game.
thing too. Like, I feel that game testing isn't given as much priority as it should be on a lot of games anymore, because it's always like, well, people are constantly online. We can just send out a patch to fix this later.
Yeah.
Where it's like, when you bought games as a kid and you bought them for a console, it's like, that was it. There's no
That
fixing
was the
this.
finished
It's
product,
like,
and
this has got to be done right the first time.
And that's
Or,
almost like
no,
what
but-
the developers, they had to make sure their game was the way they wanted it when it came out. Whereas nowadays it's like, oh well, we'll just change it later or come out with an expansion. Diablo. Sorry.
Yeah, but which Diablo? Because Diablo 2 was acceptable.
Diablo.
Because that was a full game when it released.
We all know the Diablo I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
3?
Yes, of course. Reaper
Good,
of Souls.
good job, Goal. You figured it out.
Reaper of Souls, guys.
To be honest, when is that supposed to come out by? I don't
know.
I
just know.
I don't really
Never?
care.
All I know, it doesn't matter because Diablo 3 is awful. Play Torchlight 2 instead. You'll save yourself a lot.
I was told Diablo, the Reaper of Souls expansion, fixed things, but it's like
And
Too
broke
little,
other
too
things.
late, though.
it's like you don't
Too little, too late.
game
I was gonna say,
developers.
they finally took down the marketplace, didn't they?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people were exploiting the shit out of it. Like, of course they're gonna do.
Well, the problem was it's counterintuitive to what Diablo is usually about, which is grinding to get good gear for yourself, and instead it started to become grind to sell things on the marketplace or pull out your wallet and buy a weapon and save yourself some time. And I think the problem is that people started to become really aware that it's like, am I just wasting my time by grinding? and it's like, oh no, the players are becoming too self-aware. Pull the plug.
It's a problem that's inherent to, I think, any MMO, though, is you're always going to have that issue of, is it better for me to waste my time and sell something and make money off of it, or is it better to not waste my time and buy something with money? I mean, like, you can look at it and it's like, it's going to take me 5 weeks to get this in game, or I could work 1 week real life and give someone the cash for it. And
yeah. One thing is, too, and a lot of it sometimes is like, you know, you could buy that weapon you'd be grinding hours for like $1. And you're like, there's no reason for me not to do that. I spend that much on, you know, junk food, like, easily. It's just, instead of me buying a burger at McDonald's, I'll buy a mythical war axe on Diablo.
And that'll be good for about 5 minutes.
And that's the other problem, though, is, you know, Diablo's a game where they made tweaks constantly after the release. And some of it's to make the game better, but the point is, it's getting to the point where you can expect your gaming experience to be bad if you buy a game when it first comes out. Because they're going to make so many iterations after it gets released.
And then they keep trying to do too much of the whole... I
don't think you're understanding what I'm trying to tell you.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Sorry, we're doing some sign language here. Very sexy, evocative sign language. Also, I might have been making noises with my hands. I don't know. That's also an innuendo for something, but we're not going to get into that. Anyway, no, sorry to interrupt you.
Completely derailed.
Oh, why?
Derailed train.
But it just, I don't know. It just feels too much like too many games. That ability to make the changes later on just means that the thought process doesn't go in up front that needs to happen, and people committing to things that, like, this is the way it's going to be. They're too open to, well, let's change it. I mean, there's been good things that have come from it too, where in the case of, like, you get people included early on that are invested in your product, and then allow them to have an interaction with you to say, well, we were going to do this, and then they're like, no, we'd rather you do this, and then they go and make it, and it makes the game better. I mean, it does work both ways, but I feel a lot of times that it ends up working more for the worse than the better. Because It's like, I'm buying a game because I want this game to be a very certain way, and then I get this game, and it's no longer the way I want it to be.
Yeah, you almost have an obligation as a designer to not change your product substantially after you release it, because that is a deception to your...
Isn't that almost fraud?
Like, yes, it really is, and it's one of those things where I think it's going to become
fraud.
It's going to become an issue in the future as it becomes easier to. I mean, you already see, like, how many now the alphas. There's kind of more of an understanding that that's what's going to happen.
Correct. It's like, this might not be what you get.
You know, like people who buy Rust right now. Some people get upset about it, but that's, you know, when you see that alpha tag and there's notes everywhere saying things are being changed all the time, be aware of it. You shouldn't have to put that disclaimer on a final product. And sadly, that's what you get still. Reasonable reason to disown a child. Well, I think that about wraps it up here for tonight.
Yeah, that's a good stopping point.
Yeah. We're going to have a lot more to talk about, though, in the future. We can talk about Rust by itself for a long time.
Okay. Yeah, I could probably talk about Rust for hours.
And I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of games to complain about. So
no.
we might
the
have
list
to make,
is growing every day.
We might have to make this whole "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed" a reoccurring segment on the show. So if you liked it, at least that kind of amalgamation of talking that we kind of have labeled that. Come back. We'll maybe be better. Maybe we won't.
No, I mean, this is an alpha build, okay? You have to expect some problems. So.
Well, thank you for listening. And we hope you enjoyed. Again, this is Gorloc The Mad. I've sometimes been referred to as Andy, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
And I was joined here with my sexy comrades, Gol, also known as Eban sometimes, and Kadamus, who's known by William by all of his adoring fans.
Yeah, all two of them.
And by other names, by none.
Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.